Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Sapience Institute Live. We are going to be talking about arguments for God's existence, arguments for the validity of the Quran, speaking about arguments for why Islam is the truth, and also looking at the contentions against Islam and how those can be addressed. And like always, we want you, the viewer, to come forward and present cases for Islam, cases against Islam, and of course, any non-Muslims are most welcome to come onto the live stream and actually openly challenge the content that we're actually putting out. So to get us going, there's some recent videos, Hijab, which have been put onto the Sapience channel. Could you let us know about those videos, why those are important, and what is the objective behind this or regular content that the Sapience Institute regularly pushes out?
Right, I just had to post this on the community page of my channel. That's done now.
No problem.
Yeah, so what we are doing, as Subboor kind of alluded to here at the Sapience Institute, is really two things. The objectives are twofold. One is to argue rationally a case for the truth of Islam, why Islam is true. And the other one is to handle objections of those people who have such objections or detractors of Islam. These are just basically, if you want to put it in a nutshell, what we do. How we do that, obviously, is through videographic information, through the publication of material, through training courses, which is a big part of what we do, training individuals and so on and so forth, having live sessions with you guys like this, among myriad of other things we do as well. Research-based, text-based, which you will see, hopefully, inshallah, in the next 6 months. What we've been focusing on in terms of the Sapience Thoughts Project, what I have been focusing on, because the Sapience Thoughts Project is not just the material that I'm putting out, but it's going to be many different speakers talking about different things. But what I personally, the project that I've undertook is the scientific errors narrative, which has been out there for some time, I would say for the last 20 years, ever since the scientific miracles narrative has been out there. And so there has been kind of these back and fro kind of discussions between people who are advocating that the Quran is a scientific miracle because it contains information that couldn't have been known at the time. And those, on the other hand, that are saying, in fact, the Quran is not, because it contains information which is contrary to modern science. And these are competing claims. So what we do is we come in the middle, try and arbitrate these claims and say, well, hold on, let's have a robust discussion. Number one, is science corrigible or incorrigible? Is it transient or is it eternal in terms of its epistemic ability to produce truth? Number two, are the verses of the Quran, are they qat'i or are they dhanni? Are they clear-cut or are they ambiguous? Are they mutashabih or are they muhkam? And then we say, okay, so what does the language allow? Does the language allow this interpretation or this interpretation? Or even, interesting enough, does it allow both interpretations? What does the precedent show? What's the classical precedent? What have scholars said before this, the scientific revolution, for example, 16th century, before things were very widely known to be scientifically true? What were people saying in the 8th century, the 9th century, and the 10th? So we look at that. And we have a team of very good researchers in the background helping us gather all of these things. And obviously, this is an interdisciplinary thing. And we're putting philosophy of science, a history of science. And the good news, alhamdulillah, is that we have completed the recording of this series. So next week, we already are uploading 3 videos per week. It should go up by next week to maybe 4 to 5 videos a week of the Sapience Thoughts. Videos are going to go up. And because what we have is we have a backlog of information that has already been recorded. That needs to go out there because now we want to go to the next set of contentions and arguments against the veracity of Islam, which is these kind of moral arguments. We want to kind of go into that. That will be the next project. And then obviously after that, or maybe during that, we'll have to kind of discuss and see the logistics of it. We're going to be giving arguments for the truthfulness of Islam, historical arguments, predictions, the preservation, all of these kinds of things that you may have had before, but we're going to kind of approach it from a different perspective in collaboration with great people from the Middle East and translating some of their works, like Dr. Sami Amri, who has kutub, books which are freely available in the Arab world, which we're in the process of translating, like Barahin al-Nubuwah, which is a big book that he has spent a lot of time on. So we're trying to pick the low-lying fruit, bring all this kind of intellectual property together and information together, and bring cutting-edge information and deliver it to the people. So in a nutshell, this is what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair for that. I'd like to jump straight in and go to the viewers. We have our brother, mashallah, Yusuf, who has some very colorful headphones. Welcome, Yusuf, to Sapience Institute Live. Let us know your questions. Let us know where you're coming from. And just generally, any other thing you want to share, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
So I have a bit of a long question. I was watching Mohammed Hijab. I was watching your debate with Edward Tabash.
Yes.
And he was trying to refute the contingency argument.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to quote to you his refutation.
Yeah.
And I want you to explain to me what his refutation is, because I can't understand and why his refutation is incorrect.
Okay.
So, end quote, he says, a necessary fact cannot explain a contingent fact without introducing a fact in need of explanation. If a necessary fact cannot explain a contingent fact except by entailing it, because any fact entailed by a necessary fact must itself be necessary. However, the necessary fact does not entail the contingent fact, then the explanatory connection it has to the contingent fact must be a contingent one, which introduces a new contingent fact in need of explanation. And if the defender of the argument replies...
Sorry. Go back 3 sentences. Go back 3 sentences.
It has to the contingent fact must be a contingent one, which introduces a new contingent fact in need of explanation.
All right, start again from the beginning. Sorry, I apologize. I was not concentrating fully. Let me write this down so that I'm sure that got a pen.
Okay. Yeah, even I wrote it down myself.
All right, so let's hear what he has to say. Go ahead.
Okay, so a necessary fact cannot explain a contingent fact without introducing a fact in need of explanation.
Without
introducing a contingent fact in need of explanation.
One second.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, let's do one at a time. Otherwise, it's impossible. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So let's deal with that one.
All right.
A necessary fact cannot explain a contingent fact. Okay, without introducing a contingent fact in need of explanation. Okay, this already is a mischaracterization of the argument that's put forward on 2 grounds. Okay, because otherwise you're just going to read all of what he has to say. This first sentence already for me, and I remember writing this down when we had the debate in California at that time, and seeing what he's trying to say. But look, first of all, we're not talking about necessary facts. We're talking about necessary existences. So here's what we need to distinguish between, okay? You have these universals, or you can call them transcendental universals. You can call them categories, master key categories. So for instance, if I say a master key category, or you can even call them genuses, okay? Genus, yeah? So for instance, let's say a master key category is fatherhood, okay? Fatherhood. Or let's say another master key category is existence. Okay. You can say another master key category is facts. Now, facts and existences are not the same thing. They're not interchangeable. My argument was never based on facts, what's a necessary fact and what's a contingent fact. And this is very important. The category that I was talking about was not the category of necessary facts or contingent facts. The category which is important that needs to be paid attention to is existence. So already this is it's mischaracterization of the argument, yeah? Because he says a necessary fact cannot explain a contingent fact without introducing a contingent fact in need of explanation. Okay, well, we're not talking about necessary facts and contingent facts. The only part of that debate which I remember talking about necessary facts was when I said 2 + 2 = 4 is a necessary fact. But I was using that as an analogy for necessary existences, not as interchangeable with it, which is a very important misconception I think I need to clarify, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a difference between facts and existences. Why do we have to deal with existences? Because existences is the base of everything. That my argument started, and this is not actually my argument, but let's be honest, it's the argument of Avicenna. It starts with, there is no doubt that there is existence. Okay? There's no shak, there's no doubt that there is wujud, there is existence. Wujud is different to facts. Wujud is existence. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So the master key category that or the universal, the transcendental universal that I'm dealing with here is not the transcendental universal of facts. I am dealing with the transcendental universal of existences. Number one. So let's rephrase this. If he says a necessary existence cannot explain, instead of saying what he said, which is a necessary fact. So if we recharacterize it as per what we're talking about, which is the category of existence, let's see if his argument has any weight. A necessary existence cannot explain a contingent existence without introducing a contingent existence in need of explanation. That's false. That's not true. How is that true? He has to, that's a claim that's unevidenced. He's saying that a necessary existence cannot explain a contingent existence. Let's say that because he's got it wrong. Facts and existences are two different things. A necessary existence cannot explain a contingent existence without introducing a contingent existence in need of explanation. No, that's absolutely false. We believe that the necessary existence is the cumulative result, okay, of reasoning from contingency. So what he's supposing is that we're starting from necessity and arguing back to contingency. But what we're actually doing, or what we actually have done, is we have started from contingency and argued towards necessity. The way the form of the argument, which he has mischaracterized, is not that, because this would be a circular argument. If we said that the necessary existence explains contingent existences, well, that would exactly be begging the question. That would be me putting the first premise as the conclusion. So that's not the way that we have argued in the debate, and this is not the contingency argument. The contingency argument says there cannot be a world with only possible existences. This is what it's saying. It's saying that a world is inconceivable, and this is called argumentum ad absurdum. Okay, argumentum ad absurdum is to let's try and conceive of a world with only possible existences, or to be specific, let's try and conceive of a series of things, existent things, wherein all of those series are contingently existent, not necessary existence. We will say that such series cannot exist without something outside of it, which is necessary in order to explicate it or explain it. Or that the series itself has to be necessary, in which case we will say, how could it be when it can be rearranged? Or that you can conceive of adding and subtracting to it. So that's the form of the argument. So in other words, to say that a necessary fact cannot explain a contingent fact without introducing a contingent fact in need of explanation, number one is mischaracterization on two counts, because that's not the form of the argument. We have not even mentioned the words. Facts is not what we were talking about. We were talking about existences. That's number one. Number two, we weren't arguing in a circle. We weren't arguing from necessary existence to contingent existence. Indeed, we were in fact doing the exact opposite of that, which is arguing from contingency to necessity. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I have one question. Is the last question.
In
that same debate, you also mentioned how Bertrand Russell said that the argument from causation or cause and effect has the fallacy of composition.
Yes.
So I want you to request that you explain that a bit more, because I don't kind of see it. And why would this fallacy, maybe, for example, why wouldn't it apply to contingency? Why
Yes.
only cause and effect? Yeah, that's it though. Thank you.
The argument, the contingency, sorry, the composition fallacy is in my opinion anyway, is the most severe logical objection, and probably one of the most, I would say, serious, actually, objections to the Kalam cosmological argument from a Ghazalian perspective. And I'll explain to you what this is, first of all. The argument goes as follows. We're saying that you've got two kinds of fallacy. You've got the fallacy of composition and you have the fallacy of division. Okay? These are opposites. In fact, the fallacy of division is the opposite to the fallacy of composition. And just for your notes, this whole study is called mereology. Mereology is the study of parts and wholes. Parts and wholes. Mereology. M-E-R-E. Yeah, and an ology. So the study of parts, which has, by the way, taken in with analytic philosophy now in the 21st century, has taken different forms. It's undergone different kinds of formulations. Yeah, but the point is this: they're saying, look, Bertrand Russell, he said that with his in his discussion with what's his name? Copleston, I forgot his name, Copleston, in the radio debate. He said,
the priest, right?
Yeah,
I saw it. Yeah.
I forget exactly how to pronounce his name, but he said he was not just a priest. To be fair, he was actually a very serious philosopher as well, and basically said just because that human beings have a mother and father, it doesn't mean humankind has a mother and father, right? And so this is what Bertrand Russell was saying. In other words, he's saying this: an elephant is big or small comparative to us? Is it big or small?
It's big.
It's a big one, yeah. Now, an elephant is composed of many different atoms. Now, are atoms big or small?
Comparative to us, they're small.
Yeah. So you have the big elephant, which is made up of small atoms. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Good. Now, here's the point. He was saying this: if we're saying everything that begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Yes? Are you with me so far?
Yes. Yeah.
How do we know that the universe has a cause? Or how do we argue for it if we use this form of the argument? We argue for it by saying that since there are causes within the universe itself must have a cause. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, good. So far, so good, right? So he's saying, but there is clearly a disparity between the part and the whole. So in other words, for example, the elephant is made up of small atoms, and yet the elephant is big. So you can have a difference in property between that which is a part of something and the larger part of it. In the case of the elephant, you have small atoms making up a big elephant. Are you with me? Are you with me so far?
Yeah, I am. Allah, I am. Yeah.
You're saying that the universe itself has a cause because the universe has causes within it. He's saying, he's saying it's the same problem. You got the same problem. You're saying that you're doing ta'mim, you're doing generalization. You're saying because what's in it is small, the whole thing must be small. Yeah. So it's because what's within it are causes. Yeah, the whole thing must have a cause. Now here's the problem. The fallacy of composition only works when you have a full knowledge of the whole. Okay, now let me explain. If I say the brick wall is made up of red bricks. Now each brick is what color?
Red.
Red. And the wall is what color?
Red.
Red. So is there compatibility here between the part and the whole?
Yeah.
How do I know? How do I know?
Because you observed the whole.
because I've observed the whole. Has anyone observed the universe from an outside perspective?
No.
No. So can we make claims about the universe?
Interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess not.
So what this does, the problem here, what this does is it basically stunts the discussion, because either one of those people cannot say, like the theist cannot say, just because there are causes within the universe, that the universe itself has a cause. And the atheist can't say, just because there are causes within the universe, it doesn't. Because neither the theist or the atheist has what? A full knowledge of the whole universe. Thank you very much. So this is why it's serious, because it does not, number one, it's not an undercutter, it's not a defeater, but it's a blind spot. It's a blind spot. It's a blind spot which has to be covered. That's why I don't argue from causation. And this is what Ibn Tufayl said. Yeah, Ibn Tufayl, one of the Arab philosophers. He says this, and I mentioned this in my book actually, in Kalam Cosmological Arguments. He says you have to argue on two tracks. And what he was talking about, two tracks, is the causation and contingency, which is necessity contingency. Because when you use both, it's like when you play chess. It's not possible, I don't play chess, but from my limited knowledge of the game, it's not possible usually for you to finish off the queen unless you have two things moving at the same time. You have to set up the punch in order, the haymaker, in order for it to land. Causation is like, I'm happy to use causation, but causation, in order for the argument to be an undercutter completely, should be coupled with contingency. Why? Because contingency, the same thing is not the same. We're not making an argument from part to whole. In fact, we're making an argument which is called tarkib, which is the opposite. We're saying that anything which is made up of anything, parts, anything which is made up of parts is dependent. The universe is made up of parts, therefore the universe is dependent. Can you see this? So anything which is, and when we define parts, we're talking about something which can be assembled and reassembled. It can take in like a pizza. You take a pizza, you eat it, you slice like that. Anything which is made up, and the human being. And by the way, it's in the Quran, you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, وَرَكَّبَكَ, He's the one who done tarkib of you. And this tarkib is where you put different parts and you put them together. Now, the fact that that something is murakkab, or in this case, composed of parts like this, shows that there is a murakkib, that there is something which allowed these things to be composed together. Now, so we're not arguing from parts to wholes. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're saying, not even arguing from wholes to parts even. We're making one simple observation. Anything that is made up of parts is generated. Okay, is dependent and or generated. And that the universe is made up of parts, therefore it's generated and or dependent. Khalas. In this case, the only way out of this is to claim that the universe is not made up of parts and that it's not dependent. And now you have to start providing proofs. Now the burden of proof is upon the person who's making the claim.
Made the claim.
That makes sense? Huh?
Yeah, it does.
That's what solves the composition fallacy for me. You can use this argument of Al-Ghazali, yeah, it's good, nice, but don't use it by itself. That's why I use the other one, because they'll always come with the composition fallacy, you know. And both of us have no full answer of the whole. We can, if you wanted to go into metaphysical causation, akhi, it's a jar with worms that you don't want to open. Seriously, it's a long story. Causation, these philosophers have spoken about it for a long time. You can argue of metaphysical causation, meaning causation is not physical only. You can argue on a priori grounds, and that's another way out. But for that to be accessible to a lay audience, that's going to be a challenge in and of itself. So that's why I like to use the argument that I use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but what about the fallacy? Because you mentioned the opposite of the fallacy of composition is the fallacy of division.
Yeah, but this is not applicable here.
It is not applicable.
Do you know why it's not applicable? Because we're not saying that we are making a single premise argument. We're not saying 1, 2, 3. We're saying one thing: anything which is anything that is made up of parts is dependent.
Generated.
Yeah, generated dependent. Khalas, that's one, and you can have an argument with one premise. That's my argument. Anything that is made up of parts that you can take out and put in. Like, this is what we mean by parts. It's subject to disassembly, if you want to call it that. Anything that is subject to disassembly or addition or subtraction, anything like that, that is dependent. That's one observation, one premise argument. And if someone says, no, it has to be 3 premises, who told you that it has to be 3 premises? That this is jahl. This actually is not correct. You can have an argument, which is a logical argument, with only 1 premise.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Okay, that was it. That's it.
Yeah, brother Yusuf, before you go,
yes.
So Jazakallah khair for joining us on Sapience Institute Live. Now, mashallah, you had very good questions. And these answers, I don't want them to be lost on the nether regions of the internet. So if you could actually write up the answers that Hijab gave, and because mashallah, you've written the other stuff as well, in terms of the questions, and if you could actually post that in the comment section. So you could just, if you take the timestamp, which was I think around 16 mark when you started asking, and you say, by the way, we discussed this, and you summarize it, yeah. And anybody else that joins us, I would also say that we don't want just this information to be, just floating around because these live streams are quite long. So I really enjoyed the back and forth between you two, and there was a lot of very novel information there. So I think this will, it'll take you a bit of time, maybe half an hour or something. But if you could
that's fine. I'm willing, of course, I'm willing. Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah, also, it would be good if, what's it called? I'm not sure if you're on Twitter or whatever. If you could, tweet that out as well, right? And just
to you or to
Hijab, just with the Twitter, because what I'm finding, and maybe even if you take a clip of this video and then you just repost it on Twitter and stuff, because some of these things are really like we have to sometimes repeat them every week as well. But this thing was quite unique, so I don't want it to be lost.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, thank you. One last small thing. Mohammed Hijab, I have a message for you. I have a friend of mine. It was kind of like difficult to get him interested in Islam. And alhamdulillah, it happened through your videos and through your debates and stuff. Yeah, so he loves you. He wanted me to tell you that. I'll send you the message.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair, brother Yusuf.
وإياك وإياكم. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. Okay, next we will go to our brother Junaid. And by the way, brother Yusuf, anybody who finishes on the live, I get them to leave the studio because there's lots of people trying to enter.
I will do.
StreamYard only allows us to allow 10 people to enter at a time. By the way, we got a complaint from last week's live stream, guys. So I'm going to try and reduce each questioner to 1 question, so that more and more people actually interact, and then we can recycle as well, because we had that issue that a lot of people were waiting and we couldn't actually get through to them. So the next is brother Junaid. Welcome to Sapience Live. What is your question?
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, my question, sorry, just before I get to my question, just on that, the point of causation, couldn't you also, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, something happened. Okay, can you also just argue, I think you mentioned it by saying the a priori thing, that, well, all of our knowledge is, or like, yani, as in we only get our knowledge by whatever you're going to argue, rationality, experience, intuition, whatever. So on that basis, we see the universe around us, everything has causation. So from our experience, then the most rational argument that we can possibly make is that is assumed that causation also happens there, because even if it's not,
that's a fine argument in my opinion, and that's a great argument. The reason why I do the argument the way I do it, you can add that to it, is because it just leaves no space for doubt. There's a fine argument, and what I think is good is if you use mathematics or something which is like clearly out of the realm of the empirical, right? Out of the realm, and show that is there no causation going on here in this? Like, for example, even logical arguments themselves, something causes something else, or there are so many things that are happening which you can argue for a priori causation. And for sure there's a lot of stuff that has been written, it's back and forth on it, but because there's some degree of philosophical controversy, That's why I always try and find undercutters. Yani something which no one can come back from.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Oh, you can throw that in there for sure.
Yeah, no, I get that. Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So basically, my question, so I kind of have two questions, but we'll see how it goes. So the first one is basically to do with the idea of a logical contradiction, right? So is it that do we as Muslims basically believe that if something's a logical contradiction in this realm, in this world, it will be a logical contradiction everywhere. Like, yani, nothing can be and not be at the same time. That's everywhere. That's just, you can just say yes or no, and I'll add to that.
Now it depends on how you define a logical contradiction. If you're talking about textbook logical definitions, then yes, this is the case. Because a thing is defined as, by definition, that which can conceivably exist. So, for example, a square triangle there's no possible world in which a squared triangle or triangle squared can never exist. It cannot exist because of its impossibility.
It's not a thing.
Yeah, it's not a thing.
Yeah. Okay, so then on that, then couldn't someone argue? Like, for example, let's say on the qadr debate kind of thing, right? If we respond to the qadr debate and we say, okay, look, this is from God's attributes, yeah, he predestines and he gives us free will, and since it's in God's realm, we can't understand it, but it's not for us to pick and choose what's he has to tell us. So if he tells us it's true, but then couldn't someone argue, okay, but even if God's in some other realm, the qadr, predestination and free will, that's an open kind of contradiction. So it's a logical contradiction. So it can't be possible in any possible world.
Yeah, I don't think that can be argued like that. The reason why, first of all, if that was so simple, then there would not be this huge school of thought called the compatibilists, first of all, right? Because the compatibilists, which range from Thomas Hobbes and go all the way to John Stuart Mill, and all of those in between. And I think if you do probably a philosophy count in the secular world of compatibilists, it's probably the largest school of thought of the three: libertarian, compatibilist, and determinist.
But do they believe, sorry, just quickly, in terms of compatibilists, I know they may believe, that everything can be known beforehand, but do they believe that everything is literally decreed, and also you can have that choice to do that?
Well, the way that they would frame it, they wouldn't use the word decreed. They would just say that there is an uninterrupted causal chain of events which renders everything that happens as necessarily happening because of that chain. So in other words, everything that I'm saying right now, everything that I'm doing is happening because of this uninterrupted chain of causal events. Atheists believe in this, by the way. Like Sam Harris has a book on it. So this is what they say. So everything I'm saying, in fact, everything I'm thinking, not just about everything I'm saying, is as a result of the uninterrupted causal. Like something happened before this, and something happened before that, and something happened before that. And these dominoes cause me to do and say what is happening right now and what I'm saying right now. The problem that these people face is intuition. Okay, the immediate knowledge of me having the first person experience, which is undeniable to me, which is that I have volition. Okay, now for anyone to deny that I have that is tantamount to almost denying one's existence. It's impossible for one to falsify that, and epistemologically, you could argue even more powerful. Some have argued more powerful than the demonstrative method. You could argue these things. So you have these two things which on their world view are almost impossible to refute. Number one is the uninterrupted causal line of things that have happened before what I'm saying now has happened. And number two, the immediate knowledge that I have of volition. And these two things have to somehow exist together. The mechanism of them existing together is unknown. But then to say that it's a contradiction is equivalent to going to quantum physics and saying, well, we don't understand how two particles can be in one place at the same time, and therefore it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction because we're using different paradigms for different things. In this case, we are talking about something which we don't actually have knowledge of the mechanism of. So we're saying that it has to be the case. 1 and 2 have to be the case, but how? The howness is To be honest with you, no compatibilist within any school of thought that I've seen have given me a really robust definition of how the two things can happen at the same time. So I would say that just because we have to suspend judgment on the howness of how these two things happen at the same time, it doesn't mean to say now that the two things are not happening at the same time. You know, and so the fact that you can demonstrate both of those things, free will and determinism, okay, is not an evidence against either of them, number one. And number two, the fact that we can't explain mechanisms of their equal existence or coexistence or symbiotic existence is not an evidence that such symbiotic existence is not happening. So if you wanted to mechanically write down how is this happening, basically, the kayfiyya, the how, the honest truth is no one knows how. But if we would be in a problem if we couldn't demonstrate either of the two things. Like if we couldn't demonstrate the fact that there is an uninterrupted causal line, which we believe comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they believe there's an infinite regress or whatever they want to say, or we couldn't demonstrate that we have volition, okay, then we'd have some problems. But we can demonstrate both of those things, but not how they symbiotically, mechanically interact with one another. And this is the mystery of that's why. So to call it a contradiction because you don't know how it interacts with it, it's almost equivalent to calling something of quantum physics contradiction.
Yeah. So then on that point, then wouldn't a response be that, well, how do you know that something's so true by intuition that and you must be true? Because for you, it might be that, okay, I definitely have free will, that's intuitive, but someone else, it's intuitive that this, like they'll say, okay, it's intuitive
look, honestly, this is something which almost everyone agrees, because the whole justice system is based on this assumption. Okay, there would be no courts if we were not responsible for our own actions. This was the argument of the liberals, and that's why they made their point to mention this. There would be no blame on anyone. Like when Sam Harris makes his moral arguments, for example, he makes and those who follow him and are determinists like him, they say this person was so bad to me. This person was that. This person's so horrible. Religion is so bad. Why are you making all these arguments? Yeah. These people are not responsible for their actions on your worldview. Mm-hmm. I had an argument with one young man in Oxford University, young buck who keeps changing his mind on certain opinions, and he keeps, complaining about how my behavior is. He makes video here, video there, upset about this, triggered and upset.
And you cut him off.
Yeah, cut him off, and it's obviously there's some kind of looking up to me and stuff like that. It's very natural stuff, no problem. But he makes these videos saying, "Oh, look, he done this and he recited the Quran like that," and whatever the complaints he had. Why are you blaming me if you're a determinist? You should blame the uninterrupted causal line of events, which caused me to do these things for no cause of my own, no plan of mine. I didn't do this. It was the uninterrupted causal line. Sam Harris, Firas Zahabi, one time, he said, it's very interesting. He said Sam Harris wrote a book called, what was it called? Free Will. Is it called Free Will?
Waking Up.
No, Free Will.
Yeah.
On his book on the determinism one, not the moral landscape, the free will one, when he talks about free will. And at the bottom of it, he wrote Sam Harris. Why are you taking responsibility for the book? When actually it was an uninterrupted causal line that we should. Yeah, you had no say in the matter. It was you being forced, in a sense, into compulsion and necessity to write the book. Why? I don't understand why this is the worst kind of contradiction. I don't understand why determinist atheists who do not believe in human free will have the audacity to come to human beings and blame them for anything. It wasn't my fault. Everything, according to this worldview, was because of an uninterrupted causal line, which forced and compelled me to this.
Just to add to that, they are so loud about human rights. Yeah, human rights is like, pronouns and feminism and all this stuff, but it's all meaningless under determinism.
Absolutely.
I'm just determined to be, to not care about these things. Okay, you're determined to care about them. It's just. Yeah. And I think this is a good segue to bring in your research about during your master's on how moral issues are seen as so important. They're more important than the scientific issues, other issues. Yet those moral things become completely irrelevant if we're to take determinism with
Absolutely,
any
exactly.
certainty.
The new atheist project, one of its main kind of arguments against religion is moral.
Yeah.
But if half of them are saying that we're determinists, I know Daniel Dennett doesn't believe in that. He had an argument with Harris, so I'm not saying all that. But someone like Harris, he's a complete hypocrite. Sam Harris is a complete hypocrite, because why is Sam Harris challenging religion on moral bases when in fact morality, or at least individual responsibility, is totally suspended on a deterministic worldview? A human being on determinism is not responsible for their behavior. A human being on determinism is a puppet. Yes, they are puppet, and that which is puppeteering them is the uninterrupted causal line of events. So for someone like this, Sam Harris and co, who are cowards, because they will never come forward and debate anyone on these matters, and they're having debates only among their own little echo chambers, how on earth and how dare they come out and challenge religion on a basis like this? This is a clear-cut contradiction, which I'm actually shocked hasn't been called out. And he's had conversations with intellectuals like Jordan Peterson and others,
Yeah.
Why hasn't anyone, like Ben Shapiro, maybe even, like, come on, Ben Shapiro, you're meant to be a theist or tell him, point it out. Have you not understood this? Determinism is you are not responsible for your own behavior. Come on.
And when you see these hard determinists trying to explain themselves and trying to explain why they believe in punishment, why they believe in accountability, why they believe in the justice system or morality or any of these types of things, you find that they're just playing semantical games. They really do not accept hard determinism, although they just label themselves.
Because they're consequentialist.
Yeah.
He said, well, how are you going to be a consequentialist determinist?
Yeah.
Well, you're giving us like a welfare, consequentialist, and then you're a determinist, so everything is like it's everything now. Your behaviors.
Your silly train idea.
Stupid guy. It's unbelievable. These are the intellectuals of the day.
Yeah.
You don't realize, subhanAllah, the Islamic world has been dealing with this question for 1,300 years.
They pretend they came to the party and they realized
all
this stuff, and no one before them. But like the old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah.
Yes.
They're primitive in their thinking, because what they're doing is they're kind of like, the answer's B, and we're like, no, we're asking you a philosophical question. As in you answer is so petty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bro, just like this. These people, these new atheists, because a lot of them don't even believe in theology as a subject. Yeah. That's what Dawkins said in his book. Yeah. And a lot of them have a disdain for philosophy. Like, for example, Krauss. Yeah. And that's why he was humiliated by Pigliucci in that lecture by telling him, look, these are things.
And he's supposed to be a new atheist.
As well. Bro, the worst thing is, what the issue is, they refuse to stand on the shoulders of giants.
Or they refuse the fact that people before them were intelligent as well.
Not only intelligent, but they have dealt with their issues, shown a contradiction in their reasoning, and have a whole legacy to show what kind of contradictions we're talking about. Yeah. Sam Harris's views on determinism and consequentialism are so contradictory that it actually makes me angry, brother.
Yeah.
Well, it actually makes me angry that some atheists are going around and actually copying his style. Makes me angry, wallah.
Yeah. And even just a segue, his debate with William Lane Craig, right?
Yes.
There's some debates that what you do is, after the debate, the most respectable thing is you just take off your coat and you go work in a 7-Eleven or a petrol station, and that's it. That's it. There's no point carrying on. So like the debate with David Wood, where he decided to carry on. The debate with Sam Harris, he decided to carry on. When actually anybody that watches that debate, I'm being honest with you guys, I don't think I've ever seen an atheist lose that badly. Yet still, if you watch every single one of his replies, he's basically doing emotivism. He's trying to still.
Well, that's why he's retired, bro.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's retired from debating? He's retired from debating because now he's going on spiritualism. Yeah. Talking about spiritualism, yoga, and this and that.
Lost the plot.
Bro, let's be honest with him. Yeah, this message to Sam Harris, and someone send this to him. Maybe one of the guys cut this out. And send it to him. Yeah, Listen, Sam, we know that you're trying to be a spiritualist because you have a spiritual void. Yeah? You have a spiritual void because, Sam Harris, you are an atheist. And not only are you an atheist, but you are a determinist suffering from cognitive dissonance because somehow you're a consequentialist as well. These are incompatible.
That's right.
These are incompatible philosophical postulations. Consequentialism assumes that you have volition and you have free will, whereas determinism completely denies that. So you going now to be a spiritualist and helping people breathe and this and that and think of depression, leaving depression, you will not be able to do that because you have already determined that there is a limit to our existence, and that is the empirical, naturalistic limit. Therefore, you trying to be a spiritualist of an atheist guru of some sorts is a joke as Hitler trying to be an advocate for the anti-Semitic party. Don't try it, my friend. Yeah, and you're trying to give people an alternative. You realize that people require the spiritual. Bro, it's an admission.
Well, no, not only this.
It's an admission that people need the spirituality.
Yeah, you bang on about science and how Western world came up with science and how science is the way that we should be trying to understand the world.
Yeah.
This is the new atheist narrative.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
yeah,
you're talking about spirituality, which has no scientific basis.
Absolutely.
At
brother.
all.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, spirituality.
Yes, absolutely. So Jazakallah khair, brother Junaid.
Sorry about that for banging on about this guy, but
Mel, thank you for joining us. We will now go to French Muslim. I'm assuming you're from Germany. Is that right?
Me? No, I'm French.
All right, you're French. Okay.
Hear me well?
Welcome.
So, yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to apologize for slaughtering English with my French accent. I'll try to be as clear as possible.
Sorry, what's that?
I said that first of all. Okay.
We're French, so yeah, no French.
Okay, so I have a question for Subboor regarding evolution and more particularly vestigial organs. This is a question with two dimension. I try to make it in one question.
Sure.
So a recent paper showed how during the embryogenesis, how we see additional muscle developing in the ends of the embryo, and which are supposedly like reptiles' muscle. So the muscles develop and then die, and the paper identified this as a phenomenon, as a reminiscence of reptile muscles, and which is supposedly come from a distant common ancestor of human being. So there is this dimension and another dimension, to make it short, which is like the palmaris longus muscle, in the forearm, which is a slightly different issue because this is not like the appendix or something like that, because this is not present in every human being. This is and whether or not it's present, it has no effect on like the power in your hand or in your forearm. So how do we deal with that? Because I know that you've dealt with this issue in many videos, and barakallahu fik for your work. It helps a lot. Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, very good question. The thing is, firstly, for the benefit of the viewers, I'm just going to dumb things down a little bit by explaining what is vestigial organs. So in essence, vestigial organs are going to be parts of the body which had a function and no longer have a function, and therefore are vestigial, right? They're just like
appendix.
Yeah, well, they used to say that about the appendix. It's good you raised the appendix, because now we know the appendix actually has some very important functions, although Darwin said it was vestigial. The first thing I want you to understand, brother, is that common ancestry is not an assumption, is not a hypothesis, is not a theory. It is a unquestioned paradigm, the bedrock of evolutionary theory. So Paul Nelson, I'm not sure if you saw my interviews with him. He points this out. He's a philosopher of biology, that it's not even up for questioning, and there's no scientific evidence which could hypothetically challenge it, because it's just taken as no matter what. I mean, it's like A plus B is equal to C, right? So C is common ancestry. No matter what, it always adds up to C. C is always there. So vestigial organs, from an Islamic perspective, from a creationist perspective, there's nothing wrong with the idea of believing that there were organs which were used, and then over time we lost functions for them. So for example, I was watching a very interesting documentary about these fish who were living and they were living in a part of the ocean where obviously they were using their eyes and stuff like this. Then what happened is they actually got trapped near this desert area in which they got trapped underneath basically they got cut off from natural light. And then they reproduced and reproduced. And as you know, the human body, it conserves energy, right? And humans, even us, if we stop using something, our body stops putting energy towards that thing, right? So what happened was over time, and your eyes use up a lot of energy. Now it was pitch dark. These fish basically, they still had the eye sockets, but then the eyes no longer were of any benefit. So therefore, all of the children that they were reproducing, they were basically blind, and using that extra energy, using the eyes is no longer there. So that's vestigial, right? The idea that vestigial is against God's design or anything like that is nonsense. So even if vestigial was actually vestigial, like in the case of the appendix, it turned out that the appendix, it reserves some bacteria, which is useful as a backup. Also, it plays a role in young infants. So there's reasons for the appendix. But even if it was purely vestigial, it still wouldn't mean that it fits within the Darwinian picture, or it was bad design, like they say. But what you have to understand is because now they have something that, one, either it is truly vestigial, or two, it's a false positive. It may be vestigial according to the best of our knowledge, but it may turn out not to be the case. They will always say, aha, therefore it fits in common ancestry like this. And that's what they've done in the example that you pointed out. Yeah. So I've covered this in a few videos in the past, but the upshot is it doesn't matter what comes their way. Something is functional, they'll say this is designed by natural selection. Something which is non-functional, this is a byproduct of natural selection. Something which was seen as vestigial, but now is seen as functional, they will say natural selection did it that way. And just as a live example for you to ponder on, I'm sure you're aware of the recent controversy about junk DNA. Yeah. Now, initially, Philip Kitcher, who I think you referred to earlier, who's referring to Philip Kitcher? Somebody is referring to Philip Kitcher. Anyway, Philip Kitcher, you know, junk DNA, the idea that we have junk, 98% of our DNA is junk. Philip Kitcher said the majority of our DNA is junk, and God needs to go back to school. Yeah, Auzubillah. I mean, that's what he was saying. Yeah, that our DNA, majority of it is junk, and therefore it's, you know, what kind of design is this? He used to ridicule this. He's an atheist philosopher. Now, what happened was people like Richard Dawkins and you know, other people like Jerry Coyne and others, they use junk DNA. You know, it's vestigial. Most of our DNA is junk. Only 2% is functional. What kind of design is this? Blah, 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 blah. Even then, I believe we could have formulated an argument to show that actually, no, it's fine. Anyway, the Encyclopedia of DNA Elements, ENCODE, they did a study, they published it. It showed something like 80% of what they consider to be junk is not junk, is actually regulatory genes, right?
Wow.
It actually switches on and off certain things which are related to, you know, diabetes and you know, other sorts of things. So now we found it wasn't junk.
Wow.
It was simply we had no idea how complicated it was.
Wow.
Then in an interview, the former rabbi of the Grand Rabbi, I'm not sure what they call him of the UK. He's a Oxford.
What's his name again?
Jonathan Sachs.
Yes, he's the main guy. He's the top
So
guy.
he's passed away, and now it's another guy in charge. But anyway, this guy is a philosopher from Oxford University. Yeah, he's a really smart guy. He was in a debate with Richard Dawkins. He used this. He said, "Look, you guys were saying this, right?
Yes.
And now it's turned out it's functional." And now Richard,
all in a panel.
yes, that's the one. Yeah. And then what Richard Dawkins says to him is, yeah, but of course we would expect natural selection to get rid of the junk and the DNA would be functional. But that's the exact opposite of what the Darwinists were saying before. So the problem is the paradigm.
Yes.
This is what Kuhn speaks about, yeah?
Right.
The paradigm, it makes you look at every anomaly and reverse engineer it, ad hoc rationalize it, and give it as a confirmation.
Right.
And that's what's happening. So something.
So he just changed his.
He just changed his paradigm.
So from one end, his God goes and he's go back to school, and he was like, "Yeah, it's all junk."
No, but that Philip Kitcher, but same people,
right.
Same Darwinist.
But he was using the stuff, right?
Same stuff, yeah.
And now he's saying, "No, it's actually we expect this anyways."
But this is not as bad. It's not as bad as PZ Myers.
Yes, what did he say? Go on.
PZ Myers,
Yeah.
Instead of actually saying what Richard Dawkins said, which, by the way, from their materialistic point of view, I agree with them that from your materialistic point of view, you can give that answer.
Well, what's the answer?
The answer is that before it was junk. Now they say natural selection got rid of the junk. So they try and say, of course, natural selection wouldn't keep 98% of your DNA as junk. How inefficient is that? Natural selection is obviously going to get.
What's he saying, Peter?
He challenged.
Yeah.
He's an embryologist. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not even his field. We're talking about genetics here.
Okay.
He challenged the entire study. He challenged their definition of functional, and he just started attacking all of the scientists. and ENCODE.
When did he do this?
Just a few years ago.
No,
It's on YouTube. It's called Bad Biology.
No way.
Yeah. So PZ Myers just started attacking the scientists, saying how they're doing shoddy science. Now, what's very interesting is
he just attacks anyone.
ENCODE. This is a study that was done.
ENCODE.
ENCODE, Encyclopedia of DNA Elements.
ENCODE.
ENCODE.
Yeah.
So these people, their study was not funded by some creationist institute. These were top scientists from around the world, top scientists from America. They did not know that them publishing this story is going to make them enter a theological hornet's nest. They were simply just doing science. Now, what's very interesting is when I was doing my master's, my dissertation was actually related to how Darwinism leads to false positives, how it stops research. One of the things which I did, and inshallah, I'm going to put this on my website, subboorahmad.com, my dissertation. I showed how Darwinists were actively stopping DNA being investigated as being functional because they said it's a waste of time. So they were hindering the progress of science. Their assumptions were hindering the progress of science. Now we know about now we know about this stuff about DNA and stuff, the functional stuff and the regulatory function of it. This will help us solve things related to cancer, diabetes, and other conditions. However, what does it go to show you? It shows you Darwinism itself was stopping science.
Wow. Bro, how come we haven't heard this from you before, man?
Yeah.
Or are you saving this for a rainy day or something, brother?
Yeah, I'm gonna publish it on my website.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
This is fantastic, bro.
By Allah's blessing, alhamdulillah.
Allah.
My what's it called, professor, whatever his name is, he gave me a very high distinction for this. And when I got this reviewed by an academic, he actually said this is the best thing he's read. Yeah, so it's not because of me, it's alhamdulillah from Allah, but it just goes to show you how Darwinism is a science stopper.
Allahu Akbar.
But regarding
French Muslims, I don't think you. I mean, you could have got a better answer than that.
I just have a nuances to bring regarding the junk DNA example and the Palmaris longus example. Is it not slightly different because the muscle is not present in every human being, and junk DNA is present? Supposedly junk DNA is present in every human being. You know, there is a.
What's the thing? What's the question?
Yeah. So junk DNA is supposedly universal. This example that he gave is particular.
Which example?
About the muscles and about
the Palmaris longus muscle, which is in the
forearm. The thing is, you're right in terms of statistical data, but in terms of the concepts which I described with false positives and that is the same.
But is there no distinction between the explication we can give? Is it relevant to insert the Palmaris longus cases by giving the concept with junk DNA?
The thing is, I wouldn't see it as a relevant difference. Yeah. So you're right that junk DNA that's present in everyone, but as the concept, the fact that a vestigial organ, if it's true, it can fit within a theistic paradigm, and also that they, using a materialistic paradigm, will always reverse engineer it. These things are concepts that apply to your example and to the junk DNA example. They are
So we don't. Okay. So
Yeah.
we don't need to explain it. It is not relevant.
Yeah. And also something else which is I think is very important, my brother. By the way, what's your name?
Merwan, we talk an email for Uyghur research. You know.
So sorry, say that again.
You said on Twitter you've been searching someone for a research project for the Uyghurs. I've applied like 2 weeks ago. That's me.
Yes,
Maybe
yes. You emailed me, I believe.
Yeah. But that's another subject. It's all right.
Yes, no, mashallah. Brother, what's it called? Can you just re-email me so your email comes at the top, and then we'll take it from there. Now, the thing is, I was just about to say, yeah, this is very important, yeah? Everything I'm saying to you on this live stream and everyone watching now, I just want everybody to recognize something. None of this is a scientific argument. What I always try and do, and I learned this from Hamza Sources many years ago when it came to the evolution narrative, is to give philosophical concepts which could be applied to whichever scientific information is coming out. So sometimes what happens is I've given this example of junk DNA, or we've covered this particular example about the muscles. The issue is sometimes people and atheists, sometimes what they do is they bring the new information about vestigial organs and they say, aha, I have something new. But that's irrelevant because the concepts which I'm giving are timeless. They're irrelevant. It's irrelevant if that information came out now or if it came out 20 years ago. Yeah. So I think that's very important because sometimes when I speak, it's a bit scientifically heavy. So it looks like I'm making a scientific argument when I'm not making a scientific argument. Also, the junk DNA example, even if I never had that example, the concept will still be correct. Yeah.
And you think that's relevant despite there is this universal versus particular occurrence?
It wouldn't make a difference because the particular and the universal still fit within the philosophy of biology, and these are arguments from the philosophical point of view.
Okay, so that's not.
Yeah, these arguments in a way are meta level.
I'm
right?
going to take this part of what you just said and I'm going to put it on my channel, bro.
Oh, inshallah.
I like it.
Good.
But I want to get the quote of what's his name?
Philip Kitcher.
Yeah, no, Philip Kitcher, and if PZ Meyer, bro, man, that's. But you have to publish. I think people would agree with me that you have to publish your dissertation. As soon as possible.
Inshallah, definitely.
Bro, that's mind blowing stuff, man.
Yeah,
very good.
Barakallahu Fik for the answer. And if I have a suggestion for Sapience Institute, I think that what's happening in France is a very big issue in the Muslim world. You know,
what's big in France?
What's happening?
The Islamophobia phenomenon, which is started by the politics and all that stuff. I think that's a very important thing to deal with, and maybe Sapience Institute can deal with it because there is a lot of rhetoric about Islam and bombing and all that stuff, which is used by politics. It's maybe that France is like a laboratory. Maybe that things that will happen in the future in at a global scale, maybe that are happening now in France. So I think that studying the French case regarding Islamophobia is very important.
So just to clarify, I mean, Mohammed Hijab, in terms of his public profile and using his social media presence, and myself, independently of Sapience, we can say stuff. But because of Sapience charity status, we don't make anything political because that's not allowed, right? When you're a charity. But definitely, I mean, we do sympathize. It is whatever's happening in France will, it's a blueprint for the rest of Europe.
Well, barakallahu fik. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Amin wa yakum.
Okay, next is Brother Proving Islam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. This is my YouTube channel's name, which is why it's like this. But yeah. So I wanted to discuss like the main things you were talking about, like the reason that Sapience Institute, you guys started it, was to give arguments for Islam, right? So to me, the greatest proof for Islam is actually the theology itself. So I think if you read the Quran, like this is the thing which shows up like all the time, right? Most of the Quran is just self-evident based on the linguistics and just the message. Like Allah, like that's why Allah always repeats this idea of will you not remember, etc., etc. So to me, that's the strongest argument for Islam. Just looking at its theology and then comparing it to all the shirk and kufr and this and that, right? So like Christianity is so obviously false. It makes no sense. The atheism is so obviously false. Idolatry, like idol worship, etc., etc. But the one religion which I haven't seen as much content on is Judaism, because people tend to believe that Judaism and Islam is the same in terms of its main concepts. So you'll see people like, sorry, I'm just going to turn off my fan here so you can hear me better. But
we can hear you.
Okay, so like, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Rabbi Tovia Singer. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's like the popular version of Judaism out there. And to me, like, if there's a bit of a problem with that, in that it sort of hinders our argument, because it makes it seem like imagine how strong an argument it is to say Islam is the only monotheistic religion, right? But now if you include Judaism in that, then you've sort of got like two, you know? So I started noticing this problem because it was brought to my attention that there are actually Muslims who were becoming Noahides in his comment section and this and that. So I think it's actually very important to, because like I would suppose that you're going to make this argument on Sapient Institute, because it is one of the main arguments of the Quran, right?
Yeah.
So it is so I would expect that. So I would say that it's important also to address Judaism, because I've actually seen Brother Mohammed Hijab make a video on this. He was asked this question once on like Salam or channel or something. And he mentioned how the Jewish God is a weak God and he regrets and this and that. But actually, I think it's very important to study what the Quran says about Jews. If you read from Surah Al-Baqarah to Surah Al-Ma'idah, even like there's an ayah in Surah Al-Tawbah, Allah mentions so much shirk that the Jews do, right? So it's important to understand that, you know, Allah is not just speaking about the Medina Jews. This is important to understand because the Quran is timeless. It's not just supposed to be about the Medina Jews. And so we have to sort of go back to the Quran and look at, well, what's the framework that the Quran is putting on? Because the Quran is very angry with Jews. Like Allah is extremely angry with the Yahud in the Quran. So what I was doing research on this, and I've actually made a lot of videos on this, where I found out that basically everything Allah speaks about in the Quran with regards to like Jews and the shirk and this and that they've done, this is actually all in their literature, but no one just knows about it. So I wanted to request that you guys look into that, and just like when you find out, like they're worse than Christians, I'm telling you right now. The amount of like Allah mentioned that they worship their scholars, right? That's in Surah At-Tawbah. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. That's actually in their Talmud. They have a narration which says that you take rabbis over God, because you remember, like you guys know the hadith where the Prophet explains that the meaning of this ayah is like legislation. That's in the Talmud. Then you have the hadith where they worship their prophet's graves. That's in the Talmud as well. You have stuff like magic. That's mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. That's in the Talmud. You have superstition. Allah mentioned that as well. أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا نَصِيبًا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْجِبْتِ وَالطَّاغُوتِ. They have superstition. They have they actually made idols on this thing called the Ark of the Covenant. So that's part of their thing. It's actually very weird. So in the Talmud, you have this narration that they have these two idols. They're essentially they're graven images. They don't call them idols, but they're graven images.
You know, when you're talking about the Talmud, can you give us some references from the Talmud?
Yes. So I can give you the references for sure. If you want me to pull them up right now, I can, because
send it to us in the email. Actually.
Yeah, because I actually have it all. Like I posted recently, like because the initial videos I made were like hours and hours long, but recently I compressed everything into a 20-minute like quick video. I have a document with all the references. I have a video, so I can send you that. Huh? Proving Islam. But it only has 400 subscribers, so it might be harder to look up. So maybe if you could look up everything wrong with Judaism in 20 minutes, proving Islam, you might find it. But like the reason, like for me, this was a big thing because when I was younger, I was thinking about, like everyone plays this cancellation game, like, okay, this religion can't be true because it's Trinity and that's stupid, and this religion can't be true because it's idols and that's doesn't make any sense. So for me, it was always like, well, what about Judaism? Because they seem to have the same concept of Allah, but they actually don't. And I think it's just important that people find that out for themselves. So
I think that you've made a few, like a host of really good points. There's one thing I would be careful of saying, especially in public, is that Allah is very angry with the Jews. Now,
right. Okay. Yeah. Well, what I meant was yeah, I understand what you're saying, but like if you read the Quran, Allah describes them as a people who He's angry with. But the reason He's angry with, and it's important, it's good that you brought that up because now I get to clarify. The reason that the Yahud are classified as the people Allah is angry with is because they knew the description of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Torah and they turned away anyway. So it's not that they're Jews so Allah hates them. No, rather Allah chose them. They were chosen people. And they knew that the Prophet is coming, but yet they turned away. So that's a good point. I'm glad you made that.
We've got to be careful that are the Jews of today the same? Like, are they actually Jews in the sense that, like, from the definitions that we have, or are they European? I mean, to what extent?
Well, okay, but see, the thing there is in the Quran, Yahud means their religion, and Bani Israel means their race. So I don't think that distinction applies to the Quran because Yahud is their religion. So even if you say that today's Jews are Europeans,
good. No, I think you're hitting you're hitting the right.
But is that right though?
What?
When
Bani Israel is definitely talking about a race for sure.
Yeah, because even the earliest followers of Isa alayhi salam are called Bani Israel in the Quran in Surah 61 ayah 14. فَآمَنَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل.
No, but it's not just this. It's like الَّذِينَ هَادُوا, so that they have they've become something. It's like they are.
Yeah, so that's their religion.
Yeah,
that's their religion.
Makes sense. Okay, look, what I'm saying to you now is you've made a host of good points. We'd like to have some of your references.
Yeah.
I mean, one more thing that I would add to what you've said is that the Quran says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ.
Yes.
We haven't sent you.
I have an answer for that as well. Yeah, because I know the Jews say that a prophet cannot abrogate the law. So this is one point I actually wanted to make to Brother Mohammed Hijab that he brought up, that that it's important to understand that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in their books. Like I can tell you that for a fact right now, because I know, like, I've seen videos where Mohammed Hijab, the brother, is saying like he doesn't think Deuteronomy 18 and the Paraclete sayings are that clear, but that he thinks Isaiah 42 is clear and this and that. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, like they can't answer these prophecies. Like you can ask me. I have experience in this field with, like, I know you're more inclined to like the philosophical kind of stuff. You guys, you're more into that. But as someone who's more exposed to the Ahlul Kitab side of things, I can tell you that for sure those prophecies are. Yeah. So you can find that document in the description too. It's in the description. But what I wanted to say to Brother Mohammed Hijab is, I know you're into that stuff, but as someone who's more exposed to the Ahlul Kitab stuff, I can tell you that he is there for sure, and it's very, very clear. The problem is, you have to check back the Hebrew a lot of times because they hide stuff in translations, intentionally or unintentionally.
Look, I mean, it's not about.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is, unintentionally or intentionally, the translations are problematic. But if you actually check back the Hebrew, and also a lot of times their explanations are really bad, but people just buy them because people don't understand the Bible. So I know, like, I'm sure you guys have heard of Brother Zakir Hussain. I would say if you really want to know this stuff, you can contact him because he's done 10 years of research on this, and I can tell you for a fact, like, those are legitimate prophecies. Even we have clear evidence that they were waiting for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they'll say that, oh, you only get that from the hadith and you Muslims must have made it up, right? But in Dead Sea Scrolls, they're waiting for the prophet. They actually call him the prophet, and the reference is Deuteronomy 18. The New Testament, they're waiting for him. It's the same thing in John 1:21. So you can see the Jews of the first century in the Dead Sea Scrolls were waiting for a prophet. This was the end time prophet to come. And in the New Testament, you have evidence that they were waiting for this prophet as well, because it's the Jews speaking. So even though they don't accept the New Testament, historically it's true. And then finally, in Philo's writings, do you guys know who Philo is?
Philo, yeah, of Alexandria, yeah.
Yeah, so he also expects the Deuteronomy 18 prophet to come, or it's hinted towards that it's the Deuteronomy 18 prophet. And then finally, you have the Medina Jews. So that's 4 independent sources, which confirm they were all waiting for a prophet. So
I know you've got like the Medina Jews, like for instance, Hayy ibn al-Akhtab. You know that I'm not sure. Safiya, obviously, is bint Hayy, and she was the Prophet's wife. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She was one of the wives of the Prophet. And Hayy ibn al-Akhtab, he basically, obviously, he was killed in the Khaybar, Ghazwat Khaybar. And people don't realize that, and we will make a video about this actually quite soon, inshallah, about how this whole thing took place, because you got to think about Safiya. She married the man whose army killed her father and parts of her family. So it was not an easy. It wasn't just like he just took her hand and Bismillah, that's how it goes. There was a lot of discussion between Safiya and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in that discussion, you see, you get an in-house kind of a picture of what these particular Banu Nadir Jews, or the particular tribe, what they were doing, what they were saying. And what basically she said, and this is one of the most powerful narrations in the Islamic tradition that I came across on this matter, is that she said that obviously she had her dream, and that's a riwayah. You guys can check that out. Her dream, like that she saw this and the moon and all that stuff. Check that riwayah out if you don't know what I'm talking about. But something really powerful is that she one time overheard her dad, Hayy, and her uncle having a discussion, right? And they were discussing with each other, and they were saying something to the effect of, "Do you think he is the prophet?" Like you were saying,
right?
Brother,
Yeah. That's interesting because everyone refers to this prophet as the prophet.
Let me just finish the story let me just for the benefit of the viewers. So after he said, what do you think of him? And the father said, I know for a fact that this is him. Okay. Obviously the ayah يجدونه مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة. والإنجيل. So here this ayah, and sorry, this particular hadith, or this particular incident, he said, so what are you going to do with him? So now the uncle is questioning the father. He says, what are you going to do with him? He says, I'm going to impose him as long as I live. And this was one of the main reasons, by the way, that made Safiya, she inclined to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because she knew that he was a true prophet. She had a dream, and that she saw that, she witnessed that conversation. Because the Medina, think about the Quran, like it would make no sense for the Quran to make the claim, they know him like they know their children, like they're abna'ahum, like their children. Why would it even say that? And why would it say things like, they know it, this kind of thing?
Brother Hijab, you don't understand, like,
yes.
Once you interact with Jews, like, because dawah to Jews is almost no one does it, right? But I've been like reading Surah Al-Baqarah and like Madani Quran like for so long, and when I started actually doing dawah to Jews, like, you'll be shocked at the way they react is exactly like the Quran affirms it. Like exactly what the Quran says they'll do
but
is exactly what they do.
Don't generalize, because
I know, but you can see those attitudes. Like I had a Jew tell me no because he's an Arab.
No, I understand this. I get it. And by the way, they've got a verse in the Old Testament. God repented to the Jews.
In Genesis Rabbah 27:4, it mentions how God was about that repent idea. He's like,
so here you're referring to that. You sorry, just for the
Genesis. Okay, so Genesis Rabbah is a tafsir.
Bro, please, just. I know you're a bit excited, and I appreciate that you're giving some really good, points. But
I'm like you on Twitter.
Yeah. But please, just okay. Thanks for that. But but just when I try and add something of benefit, please just allow me to do that, so that we can have, for the benefit of the viewers only.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that with yeah, Genesis Rabbah is part of the Midrashim, right? So it's part
Right.
of what you said is tafsir.
Right.
So this is according to Nusna, Joseph Nusna. I'm not sure if you know who he is. Do you know who he is?
No.
Okay, you should know because you said you're a specialist in Judaism, and he's like the #1 most published man for Judaism and talks about these matters, right? So,
Right.
so once again, bro, you know, if you're going to claim to be a specialist in something, you should know the names of the people who are the ulama of that thing. So Nusna is actually he's on the Guinness World Book of Records or something for producing the most books ever written. Okay, in the present age, I think he's actually produced 900 books. He's produced 900 Nusna. His name is Nusna, right?
In the present age.
According to in the present age, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. I know, but I tend to stick to the classical Jewish scholars.
Yeah, of course, but
Yeah.
you know, of the present age, is
Right.
he is the secondary source material, and
Right.
he says that Genesis Rabbah is actually dated between 400 to 500 AD, which is interesting because 4 to 500 AD is after the patristic period for the most part. Like most ecumenical writers would have written what they had to write. So which means Genesis Rabbah, which is part of Midrashim, right?
Yeah.
It postdates. So it postdates Genesis Rabbah. It postdates the patristic works, and
Right.
so this is an important point in and of itself.
I think I actually read certain Jewish tafsirs on this, where they. I'm going to slow down because you advised me. So I think I actually read some tafsirs of the Genesis where it talks about God regretting, and they were quoting Genesis Rabbah. This idea, I like found it in every tafsir. I was going through Rashi, Ibn Ezra, all of them. They were all quoting this idea from Genesis Rabbah that basically the story is God is like, it was my mistake that I created human beings. I should have made them angels and this and that. So
Yeah, but
it makes me think the tradition might go back because, you know, even the Talmud is influenced by Islam, some of it. So I think the traditions are going back, even though it might have been written later.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your contributions. You've been great and given us some really good points, and you've advertised your channel. Hopefully, people can.
Can I just say I didn't mean to mock you, brother? Like about the Twitter. No, I didn't mean to mock you or anything.
By the way, I subbed to your channel.
That's fine, bro. We've all made mistakes before in the past.
No, like
one of the people that
no, I think you're a good brother. You do good work. I was just like making a joke to lighten the mood because I know I interrupt sometimes. But,
That's
yeah.
right. But
I'm younger, guys. I talk different.
Okay, in that case, if you're younger, let me give you one piece of advice before you depart. One piece of advice. I'm young as well. I've got the impulsive nature and stuff like that. But be careful what you claim about yourself. This is just one thing.
Well, I didn't say that I'm a Jewish expert or anything.
I know. I'm not saying that you said that, but I'm just saying that be careful of it because now, to be actually established in a field like, and bro, like I'm scared of that because the Jewish works are deep, and you know the Talabat al-Ilm, the Jewish Talabat al-Ilm, they're not like the Christians, by the way. Like,
yeah, they're very extreme.
No. Let me explain that, bro. Not everything's extremism and all this. What I mean here is this. What I mean is that if you meet the typical Christian, okay, he will not know Hebrew, and he will not, even if he's a scholar in Christianity, he will not know Hebrew and he will not know Koine Greek. If you meet a rabbi, it will be embarrassing if he does not know Hebrew, right? Yeah. He'll be able to speak in Hebrew, talk in Hebrew, read in Hebrew, understand in Hebrew. He would know, like, London is filled with Orthodox Jews. People that when I meet a Jewish scholar, he is completely different to a Christian scholar. This guy has spent 20, 30, 50 years. We have to be very careful, especially as young people, approaching these people, okay, who are not like the Christian pastors who just read it in English. These guys are deep, they're serious. You'll quote to them the Midrashim, they'll come with the Talmud Babli, Talmud like this and that, and they got and he'll be able to do what you call tarjih, and he knows what's right and what's wrong, and there's different, bro. Judaism is a bahr, it is a sea, bro.
But
and be very wary, because I know, like, The talabat al-ilm, like if you get a strong Muslim talib ilm, who's the Quran, understands it and whatever, and some fool comes, he doesn't know the Arabic language, the talib al-ilm will run circles around him. Okay.
Right.
Now you can imagine the same thing is the case with the Jews.
Yeah.
If you try to come with arrogance with them, like, oh, you're evil and this and it says that, bro.
No, I didn't mean it that. Like, I understand, but I was trying to connect it to the Quranic discourse.
No, of course, bro, because you are, mashallah, nasheed and good brother, and we advise you, like, because you are in the dawah. That's why I'm speaking to you like that. Make sure you humble yourself to these people, because if you're speaking to Jewish scholars, they're not like Christian scholars. Christian scholars, they have the same access as you. The Jewish scholars, I'm sorry, no. And it takes time to properly be fluent in Hebrew and to go through these things and to understand it. So we have to humble ourselves. And remember, the Quran calls them ahbar.
Yeah.
And ahbar min hibr.
By the way,
which means ink.
Sorry to interrupt you. Because we've done the Jewish topic for a long time and there's loads of brothers waiting. So we'll end it there. Jazakallah khair, brother, for joining us.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Next is Munib Qazi. Welcome to Sapience Live. I believe your question was about DMT or something, right?
Actually, I have two questions. One is kind of request. First, I'll go through that. First of all, Assalamu alaikum, and I really appreciate your work, and I really am inspired by your work. Brothers, my question is to both of you. I'll tell you why I'm asking you later. Do you like poetry?
Poetry. To be honest, I really like the poetry of Iqbal. Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, other poetry things I'm not really into.
Me personally, I like it, bro. I'm not gonna lie, but I don't like it enough to listen to it as much as I should be listening to it as a Muslim, because I reckon that, to be honest, a Muslim should be knowing a lot of poetry, because especially the Arabic poetry, it's all beautiful.
Yeah,
and it allows you to appreciate the Quranic language a lot more.
Yeah. That's
so for me, that's one of the adventures that I want to, like, inshallah, in the next couple of years, I want to have.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm a poet myself, and I have recently published my book, which is My 40 Poems to Know the Meaning of Life.
Are they in English?
Yeah, it's in English.
Give us a bit of it, brother.
Come on, man.
So, sometimes reading about abstract philosophical or religious topics can be sometimes boring and dull experience for some readers. So I try to convey the message of Islam through my poems, and I was hoping that you guys can review my book if possible.
I'll be very honest with you.
I don't know about reviewing it, but just give us a bit of poetry now and we'll review it now. Come on, let's go. This is I'm not going to lie to you, bro. I'm not going to have time. If you give us a 5-liner, 10-liner, we can review. Come on, bismillah.
Okay. So basically, I have divided the poems into different parts. Like it's based on different pillars of faith we have in Islam. Like I've covered the hereafter, the faith, the six basic. The 6 pillars of Islam. All are covered in this. I'll just read about the poem which I have written about our Prophet.
Bismillah.
I've covered. Yes. Just give me 1 sec.
No problem. Take your time.
So this is about our Prophet, one incident which happened during his lifetime. The poem is called The Prophet's Date. The Prophet's Dates.
Dates, okay.
Yeah. It was the month of Ramadan, when in the service of the Prophet came a man. I broke my fast, O Prophet, said he, O Messenger of God, do thou guide me. Go ye, your Lord is forgiving. He forgives man's every sin. To expiate your sin, go free a slave. Such is the command which your Lord gave. O Messenger of God, I am weak. In all honesty to you do I speak. To free a slave for me is impossible. Over your command you do mull. Go ye seek his forgiveness. For your misdeed you fast for 2 months. Indeed, your Lord is most forgiving. Such is the command of your Lord which I bring. O Messenger of God, I am weak. Fast of Ramadan I could not complete. Fasting for 2 months for me is heavy, so gracious be thou to my plea. Go ye, your Lord sees and listens. In his path you feed 60 men. Indeed, your Lord is most forgiving. Such is the command of your Lord which I bring. O messenger of God, I am weak. To feed 60 men is beyond my reach. Be thou be gracious upon me. O messenger of God, do thou guide me. Go ye, take these dates from me. Give ye to the poor and needy. Indeed, your Lord is oft forgiving. Upon his slaves he showers his blessings. O messenger of God, indeed I am poor. No poor of Medina from me can be poor. So be thou be gracious upon a poor man. Give him out of your bounty what you can. A smile broke across the prophet's blessed face as he hearkened to the man with utmost grace. Go ye and take all of these. Eat my dates until ye are pleased.
Allah, mashallah, mashallah. This is the one, brother. I like him, man. Mashallah. What's it called? Huh?
The book is called My 40 Poems to Know the Meaning of Life.
Wow. I think some people are going to be going to get this book right now.
So this is a collection of 40 poems. It introduces a person to Islam. All the the articles of faith and everything is covered. When you read my book from the atheistic's perspective, you'll know how it opens the mind of a person to the idea of God and to Islam.
That was a very nice poem. It's interaction between one man and the Prophet.
Yeah, it's based on the hadith mentioned in the Sahih Bukhari. You might be knowing about that, yeah.
Are you talking about the hadith where the man had intercourse with his wife?
Yeah.
Afterwards, he said, "Go to your family," and you can see his molar teeth. It's a beautiful hadith.
Yeah. Did you like my poem? Did you like it?
I like it, of course. How could you not? Anyone who says they don't like it, they don't know about poetry, brother.
So would it be possible for you guys to please read it once at least and review it, and maybe you can? Yeah.
I'll be very honest with you. We get loads of requests for reviews.
If we do it, brother, for you, we'll have to do it.
We'll have to do it because I'll honestly tell you.
This is a review, brother. We just said we love it.
No, it's very good, mashallah.
This is a very reasonable thing.
Yeah.
Very nice. We love it.
Yeah. The thing is, as a Muslim, we should never commit to something unless you absolutely are going to do it. Yeah. And I've learned that the hard way. I've committed to things and never done it.
You say no all the time. They call me the rejecter.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, no.
Brother, how can I say no?
Yes.
But yes, I try my best to give you the review from basically what you've said.
Yeah. So so let us know your question, inshallah, brother Munib Qazi.
It was not like a question, like it was a comment, really. You uploaded a video regarding DMT and outer body experience and all that. I just wanted to point out that do you have any idea about astral projection?
Do you know about that?
No,
I don't know. What's it called?
Astral projection.
Astral projection. You should look it up. It's it's basically the idea, like when we sleep, you might be knowing, like our soul exits our body, right?
Yeah.
So in the Quran, in the Quran it says, "Allahu yatawaffal anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha, fayumsiku allati qada alayhi al-mawtu wa yursilu al-ukhra ila ajalin musamma. Inna fi dhalika la-ayatin liqawmin yatafakkarun." So basically, when we sleep, our soul exits our body. So the idea is, like, when you try to do astral projection, you try to make your body sleep, but you keep your mind conscious. You don't let your mind sleep. You just focus, keep your mind focused, and let your body sleep. So basically, what happens when your soul exits your body, you can be well aware, like how we are aware right now, conscious right now. You can see everything. You can see your body. You can see the soul leaving the body. So do you get me?
Absolutely. I'll have to look into that because that's interesting.
There are loads of videos available on YouTube.
I'll check it out.
Sorry.
I've written it down on my notes so I can go and check it out.
So there are loads and loads of testimonies already available on YouTube. Like, people upload their stories, how they did astral projection, what they saw. There's a huge, I can say hundreds and hundreds upon hundreds of testimonies on YouTube available for us to see. I was just wondering, is this permissible in Islam? Like,
I don't know what it is. I can't. I mean, there's three things. I don't know what it is. I'm not a mufti, and I don't have to tell you.
and he doesn't know where he is.
Compounded ignorance. I mean, it's compounded ignorance. It's like the blind leading the blind. If I were to give you an answer to that, that would just be catastrophic.
Yeah.
No, the blind not knowing he's supposed to lead.
You know more than I do, bro. Also my
I'll be honest with you. Like I just tried it once, and I felt my soul like leaving the body actually, and it was really like.
I would say be careful with this stuff.
I think I'll tell you one time this actually happened. You know, it wasn't to me; it was to my opponents. Because whenever I debate them, the soul leaves the body. You know, they have astral projections.
This is real, brother Sam. Like
I want to just add something. Jazakallah khair, brother Munib Qazi, to this. You just spoke about the opponents and stuff.
That's good. It's astral projection. Yeah.
This thing about the way you look during debates, and a lot of the communication is non-verbal. I don't know why, but this image stuck in my head. And the image was when, during the debate, there was just one segment, because I was watching it live in Pakistan. And I'm not sure what time it was in America, but in Pakistan it was after Fajr. So I was watching it live at Fajr time.
Which one?
The David Wood debate.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, and there's one point where I actually saw David Wood, and he just looked really vulnerable. Like I've never seen him look like, like I've always looked at him and always felt like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He's this, he's that. You feel like just refuting him. But he actually, it was almost like, to the point where someone is so humiliated, you actually start to feel empathy for him. Now, what happened with me, and I it's a weird thing, but somebody that you see as, okay, that's a strong opponent of Islam, that's an Islamophobe, it's a person that you see him in the video, he's got this smirk. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
he's got this constant smirk, and he's got this look and the camera angle in his face. And that point, bro, it literally, what it reminded me? It reminded me of, I'm not sure how true this is, but supposedly there's this idea that Fir'aun, he hated going to the toilet.
Really?
I don't know if you
I've not read it.
But the reason was because it showed his humanity. Yeah. So he hated going to the toilet because it was kind of like, he's supposed to be a god, he's supposed to be great, and he's going to the toilet, right? So that image is now ingrained in my brain, where the image where he's so vulnerable, I feel sorry for him. So now I have these mixed feelings, yeah. So I have this that now, after that, when I saw that debate and the aftermath and everything, I just thought to myself, do you know what? That's it, he's finished now. When he went back,
it's a bit like Conor McGregor.
Yeah. He made the same quality videos with the same confidence. And I was like, that just reminds me of, in school, somebody gets buoyed. They get buoyed, like somebody just bullies them in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And next day they pretend to be hard again. It's like, no, that's gone now. That boat's gone now. And that ship sailed, basically. But I don't know if you felt that, because I had this weird feeling during the debate that's it.
I felt the same thing with you and Aaron Ra, actually, when you had this debate. When he came back and he saw you and speak, he didn't seem like he wanted to be there. Like he saw a night. It's like it's like it's like the school bully has come. And he's just not interested. And now look at where he is.
Goes back to confidence.
Where is he now? What's he doing with himself? After that, I don't think he's. Where is he? What's he doing with himself?
But I do find this. I think it's the Sam Harris has the same issue. He lost the debate to the point that there's no point carrying on.
Yeah, he's retired.
But he now makes videos as if nothing happened. But the thing is, once you've done something like that, I think that I would respect somebody who simply says, do you know what? All right, hats off. I'm going to go become a janitor. Like, I'd respect that person more than somebody who pretends nothing happened, and they just pretend. Also, one of my thoughts on this is pure kibr. Okay. Like your ego is so big. We're talking about astral projection. Yeah, your ego is so big, you don't realize what just happened to you.
Pathology, bro. I actually feel he might be my fault. This David Wood, because meaning the pen has been lifted from him. Like, he made a video, he's talking about his mom and brother dying or something, and he said it with no emotion. And seriously, if you're going to do that, I am actually going to suspect, he said he's a psychopath, but he might be psychotic actually as well. He might be insane. He might be clinically insane. And for all intents and purposes, if he's insane, it's maf'al qalam. It could be this.
Well, the strange thing is not that he's just insane or these types of things. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, anybody who knows. What I love about him, this is why I actually really like him, yeah, is that these Christians, they work so hard to build a narrative of Jesus's love. It's all about love. Our religion's love. Crusades, that's nothing to do with us. You know, we're all about love. They go to Muslim countries, they go to other countries, they try and just talk. They build up this amazing narrative of Jesus and rainbows and unicorns and safety, and then in comes along a man with a sledgehammer
eating food, eating Quran.
Yeah, and he thinks
it's hurting us.
Yeah, and he smashes their narrative.
Bro, eat
You
it
know
more,
what he
bro.
is?
Man, keep going eating. You're destroying the religion.
Basically, what he does, all of the hard work, I'm sure there's emergency meetings that are happening. Yeah, I actually had an idea for hijab and Ali Dawah to do. Yeah, and what it was, what you do basically, right? You go to meet a Christian, and you meet them in Brixton. You know, in Brixton, you've got those churches, black churches, and you know these type of things. Yeah, and you go there.
Pentecostal.
Yeah, Pentecostal. Yeah, you go there and you basically say to them, "Look, do you know Muslims and Christians? Don't you agree that both of us should be facing atheists together?" He's like, "Yeah, you're right. Don't you agree that both of our religions, you know, we should be getting along like we're getting along in Africa? Okay, that's good. What do you think Christianity teaches?" They're going to say, "Oh, you know, teaching love thy neighbor." And you're like, "You're right." Do you know what? I want to ask you something. Yeah, I want to ask you, do you think Bin Laden, do you think Baghdadi, do you think these people represent Islam? The Christians going to be like, "Of course not. These people don't represent Islam. We know that these are bad Muslims. We know that these are terrible people."
Some of them will say something else.
Yeah. And we could say, well, you know, just like there's bad Muslims, don't you think there's bad Christians? Like, I want to show you something, you know, love and peace and all this stuff you spoke to me about. What do you think about this person eating the Quran? And you get the reactions of all the Christians who you first hype up to make them talk about love and peace. Then you show them that video.
Bro, and now they're talking.
I reckon that video will go viral.
I don't get it. Do you know what these Christians do? They wait for their guys to die and then they start challenging them. Like this Rabbi Zacharias, he's got a scandal on him. But now you're just abusing his family, who's non-bystanders, because they have to hear all these things about their dad or their uncle or whatever. Why don't you do that when he was alive?
Yes.
Now they're waiting for David Wood to die, and they're probably going to go do the same thing.
Yeah,
I'm quite surprised by the state of.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair, brother Qazi. Sorry,
just one more thing. Like, I just wanted to say, I just sent this copy to brother Imran Hussain recently, and he seemed to have read few of my poems, and he did really like it. So, and I sent one copy to Alex also. Alex O'Connor, the Cosmic Skeptic.
Yawning is your reaction to that. So yeah, Jazakallah khair, brother. May Allah bless you.
And one more thing regarding that astral projection I told you.
Yes.
You know, people have given TED Talks also regarding this topic and their experiences. So this is a very, very real thing. If you can just...
We'll check it out.
We'll check it out. Although I would say, we're not promoting it here. And if anybody tries it, I mean, if it is something, then definitely we need to look at the halalness of it first, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Next is Danish Khan. Welcome to Sapience Live. Brother Qazi and anybody else who's been live already, if you can please leave the studio, because it can only allow 10 people to enter. So if I do kick you from the studio, just remember it's a gentle...
And also, if there's any non-Muslims, let us know who you are as well.
And we'll give you priority.
We'll give you priority.
In fact,
you get priority if you're non-Muslim and if you put your cameras on. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, anybody with a camera on gets a priority. So guys, because we're coming to near the end of the live stream, I want to make sure that we get as many people as possible who've attended the studio. Welcome to the live stream, Danish Khan. What is your question today?
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So this is my second time coming on. Thank you again for having us. So I wrote down my question so it could be brief and other people could ask questions. I'll just read it out really quickly. So it's about the contingency argument.
Yes.
So I found your comments on Kalam very interesting, and the discussion in your book and in the Quran about multiple deities and how this is not possible, as they would outstrip each other and that they would have to be defined against each other. So to quote, I believe the conclusion of your book, quote, "There cannot be more than one such a being, since it would entail that at least one of these beings is differentiated, possible, or dependent." To preface, I'm only asking this question like to see like what logically follows from like the argument. This isn't like any like doubt or anything like that I have. So two questions based upon this, right? Why doesn't the instantiation of dependent objects limit the necessary existence in question? So why, like, how would you argue that like an instantiation of an independent existence creates a differentiation between like the two existences, if that makes any sense? And then second of all, this is kind of related, not directly related, but would moral restrictions restrict the independence omnipotence? So like if Allah has a moral code that he follows, is that a hindrance to omnipotence?
And let's start with the first question first. I think there might have been a bit of a confusion between Dalil al-Tamanu', which is what you're referring to, which is that they would outstrip one another. That's in reference to chapter number 23, verse 91, where it says, مَتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِذًا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقَ وَلَعَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. That Allah did not take a son, and he didn't have with him any God. Had this been the case, they would have outstripped one another. And this is what the people of Kalam, or whoever it may be, theologians, systematic theologians of the Muslim world, refer to as Dalil al-Tamanu', which means the Tamanu' mana' is basically something, it's a preventive, something which prevents something else. So Tamanu' is the preventive, the evidence of prevention. Okay, so what is prevented here? What is prevented of in this verse, that you can't have two all-powerful deities. You can't have two all-powerful entities, because by necessity, this would mean to say that one of them is, you can't be the most powerful if there's another one of you who is of equal power, because that would mean to say that you are more powerful and equally powerful to that other entity at the same time. Did you get this point? If there's more than, so if the postulation is that there are two all-powerful agencies, so if we say all-powerful, what do we mean by that? The most powerful. Then what we're saying is you can't have something which is the most powerful, which is what we say God is, the most powerful, yet equally powerful to another entity at the same time, because you can't be equally and more at the same time.
Most like implies one thing.
Right, good. So that's tamana, right? You can't have two all-powerful things which are more powerful than all things that exist, because if that is the case, then they will be most powerful. They would be more powerful than the other one and equally as powerful than the other one. Which is, by the way, on this point, all of these deviant sects in Islam, and it's not all, like for example, Tashayya', the Shi'i sect, right? Not all of them say this, but there are definitely some 12ers who say that Ali has the same knowledge as God. For example, they say alayhi salam, yeah? They say he has the same knowledge as God, and they have chapter headings of the Kafi book saying that he knows all the things that come from the sky and blah, blah, blah. And they will make an argument saying that the only thing why this is acceptable is because Allah has given him the permission. Right? And this is not something which is, I'm sorry to say, exclusive to the Shiites. There are some Sufis who I've heard say this myself. I've heard them say this, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows everything that exists. Yani even the Sa'ah he knows. Even the Quran says there's no one knows when Sa'ah. يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها. And this, some say no, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows everything. And in fact, not only he knows it, but he can hear everything. And therefore we can invoke him directly because he can hear everything. This is Shirk Akbar. There's no way that you can believe that and remain to be Muslim. Because how can you be? First of all, it's logically impossible. It's logically impossible. Because you're saying now that Allah there's another entity which is meant to be as powerful and less powerful than God, or as knowledgeable and less knowledgeable than God, or has the same ability to hear, has less ability to hear, and more the same ability to hear as God. If any Muslims believe that, that's a nullifier of Islam. This is very important, because it's not just something which, this verse, some Muslims call themselves Muslims, believe in it. I've heard them, my own 2 ears. I've had discussions of Talabat al-Ilm from the Shi'i people, and they say, we believe Al-Hussein knows everything. that he knew when he was going into Karbala, when he was going into the war, that he would get killed, and he went there doing suicide mission. He knew that. Yani he knows everything. This is no different from Christianity. We have to appreciate this. This is no different. Believing in that, there's no difference between believing in that and believing in Jesus, who also has similar abilities. So we put them in the same camp as Christians. Those individuals who vehemently like believe in that without, obviously we'll not make takfir of them. We'll say, this is what the Quran says, this is why it's logically impossible, but that is a nullifier in Islam. I know this, I just went on a tangent here, sorry to say, but that's tamana, dalil al-tamana, which is the preventative dalil, or the evidence of prevention. Or I'll think of a way to translate that maybe, or look at what the literature already has. But what I was making in the book is not dalil al-tamana, by the way. What I was making in the book was the evidence that you can't have more than one necessary existence. Now, why can't you have more than one necessary existence? If one of the definitions of a necessary existence is something which cannot be any other way. So if there's two of them, there's two options. Okay, there's two options. I want you to think about this, yeah? Option one, that thing is described in exactly the same, let's call it necessary existence A, for the sake of argument, and you have necessary existence B. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm writing everything down, so I'll tell you if you're going to.
You have necessary existence A, and you have necessary existence B. Necessary existence A is described as having necessary qualities, yeah, which cannot be any other way, which means that these qualities are, you cannot add, subtract, rearrange. It's that way, and it cannot be any other way. Yes?
Okay.
Now, if we say necessary existence B is the same, but has one difference, okay, which is that, for example, necessary existence B has the difference of, let's say, one quality X. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we differentiated necessary existence B from necessary existence A, because necessary existence B, yes, has quality X, which is different, then by definition, necessary existence B is not necessary, but it's contingent, because a contingent existence is something which can be something another way. If you differentiate necessary existence A from B, then you've already rendered necessary existence B for any differentiating reason, then you've already rendered necessary existence B as contingent, because a contingent thing is something which can be any other way. And since you're saying there's a variable which can be rearranged in order to differentiate A from B, then that variable by definition must make necessary existence B into a contingent existence rather than a necessary existence. Now,
so one question. Okay.
So go ahead first. Go ahead.
So one question. So okay, so you're saying that there's one variable that means because there's a variable that means it follows that it is contingent, because that means that like that existence could be some other way, which is in negation to the necessary, right? One question before. One question before. Yes. What about like free will of like the entity? That would not come under like this argument, because like we believe Allah and necessary existence, Allah has free will, right? So you could do one thing, could do another thing, right? So wouldn't, like, we're saying that properties or qualities that you said quality X is different from like free will itself is a quality, but what like the necessary existence does with the free will is not a quality, right? I don't know if that made any sense.
No, I think I know what you're trying to say. Look, volition or will here, now we're going into a different discussion as to what the necessary existence does. Now, we're not talking, this discussion is not focused on fi'al or verbs. We're talking about what and is. We're not talking about what they do, right?
Okay,
we're talking about
exactly.
What it is. Right.
Yeah.
So here, this is only focused on intrinsic attributes.
Okay, exactly. Okay.
Right. So that's the other option is to say that necessary existence A and necessary existence B, there is no differentiation. Yeah, there's nothing to differentiate A and B. Okay, so we don't have this issue. We don't have this issue now, according now on this logic. We don't have this issue, right, of necessary existence B having a quality X, say, to differentiate it from necessary existence A. Yeah, but if we say that necessary existence A is the same in terms of how we define it, as next to existence B, it's the equivalent of saying A equals A, which is a tautology, which means that both of them are the same thing.
Exactly. Okay.
There is actually no difference between next to existence A and B. In that case, we have solved the issue. These are the only exhaustive ways you can deal with this situation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was going towards like a similar track. Thank you. Like by making it clear. Would you be able to answer like the second part of the question? Would moral restrictions restrict the independent like being's omnipotence, like being like having like complete mercy and like omnipotence? Like, how are they not contradictory?
So basic. So say that again. That last part of the question. Sorry.
Having infinite mercy and having omnipotence, how are they not contradictory?
Why would they be? Sorry. Why would they?
Because
be?
like for us, Allah cannot do like Allah cannot be evil, right? So like omnipotence means that like you can do all things, right? If I please correct me if I'm like saying anything wrong, right? But omnipotence means that you're like
Okay, so Allahu ala kulli shay'in qadir, that Allah is over all things powerful, exists to the category of existence, which is possible existences. So in other words, when we say here ala kulli shay'in qadir, this yakhruj min al-qawl, or comes out of that, is the things which don't exist. For example, contradictions or square circles or whatever, because that doesn't exist. They're not things.
Okay,
that's an important point. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So would that mean like would that mean that like saying that like under omnipotence, under our definition of omnipotence, only things that are like merciful can like happen, right? Like would that like that's like my question is basically omnipotence means that like the necessary existence can do all things, right? If you believe in like all merciful like necessary existence, then by definition it means that that necessary existence cannot do evil things. So how is that not a contradiction?
Okay. So first of all, there's two things here. I'll tell you Ibn Taymiyyah's opinion on this. He had a theodicy. Ibn Taymiyyah didn't believe evil existed in the real world, which is a very interesting position, by the way. He said that evil is only nisbi, and this was the opinion of Ibn Qayyim. I'm actually starting to gravitate towards this position, although there are some qualifications. Pardon?
Can you define the last word you said? I think you said Arabic.
Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim said that evil is only relative.
Oh, relative. Okay.
Yeah. So let me give you an example, right? Let me play devil's advocate. Can God steal?
Everything is his. So no.
There you have it. So because what can I steal?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can.
Sorry to be graphic. Can God rape?
I mean no, because like no.
No, good. Because there's no such thing.
It's the same logic you would use for steal. It just has different connotations.
Right. So the point is, these evil actions that we're doing, on this view, right, are only evil because we interact with the world in a certain way, which it's a relative evilness. Okay, according to this view, it's a relative evilness, which means that my interaction with X is such that I'm evil because of what I'm doing. My actions are evil. Now, Allah has created our actions. This is a very important point, by the way. Ibn Qayyim, and I take his view on this. So I'm just going to give you what I take the view on. Ibn Qayyim says this: Allah doesn't do our actions. Yeah, and I think he's the best contributor of this in the Islamic discourse in his kitab Shifa al-Alil. That Allah doesn't do what we do. He doesn't do it. I do what I do. Allah, because here's the issue, right? Some people think it's something which is against, and this is the position of the Calvinists and the Reformed tradition. Yeah. Something against the sovereignty of God, that I may act within my own, or I may have efficacious action, or action which is efficacious, or volition, or will of my own, aside from the will of God. Are you with me?
Yes. Yeah.
So we say this, and this is, I think, the best answer to the question from all schools of thought that I've read, and I've read all of them, like Molinism, Calvinism, Arminianism, Ash'arism, and within Ash'arism the different flavors, and then Ibn Qayyim. And I think for me Ibn Qayyim was the best. Okay, he says this: human being doesn't do his own actions. Okay, Allah doesn't do human beings' actions, right? Human being does his own actions, but the relationship of omnipotence that Allah has with our actions is a creative relationship. So in other words, Allah creates our actions. Are you with me?
Okay.
And the Quran says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He's the one who created you and what you do. In the Quran. This is how to preserve the omnipotence and the sovereignty of God. That Allah's actions are not our actions. They're not synonymous. If you say that they are, then we have no free will. It's gone. There's no free will. Khalas. We're puppets. Go back to Jabri school. Yeah, it's that you are now. Allah, it will be unjust for him to take us to hellfire. We are in control of the hellfire. We are, in control of our own actions. But Allah has created us and therefore indirectly created what? Our actions. So the way to preserve the omnipotence of God is through a creative relationship, not through a verbal doing relationship. So this is my position. Number one. First and foremost, we're saying evil is nisbi. Evil or shar or evil is relative to the doer. It's subject relative. Okay? And in the case of the human being, it's relative to the human being. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
So can God commit shirk? No, this makes no sense. Muhal, aqlan. It's impossible. This sorry to say this big debate that the Maturidis are having with the Ash'aris about can God lie? How can something which is all true lie? It's muhal, actually. If God is al-haq, a lie would be absurd. It's like this is all. So this is the answer to the question. God cannot lie because that's muhal.
Okay.
So what we're saying is, sorry, I'm going into deviance. I'm going into
no deviance.
I'm going to tangents.
Tangents, yeah.
The point is this. Sorry, what was the question?
While you're doing that,
yeah, infinite mercy, infinite power. So sorry. The evil argument from this theodicy paradigm, we say the following: God's infinite power is not jeopardized, therefore, by creating creatures with volition that have actions of their own, which have an indirect creative relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He has that indirect creative relationship with it. So we maintain the omnipotence of God, but at the same time we maintain the mercy paradigm, or the wisdom paradigm, or the goodness of God paradigm, all that stuff.
Okay.
This is an area where we have to tread carefully because many different people have different opinions. But I'm just outlining to you what my opinion is.
Sure.
And that's what it is.
Okay. So, Jazakallah khair, brother Danish Khan, for joining us. I'm going to apologize to Bosnian Muslim and Daniel Khawar. Please join us next time. We've run out of time. Unless we finish the stream on time, it actually gets quite difficult. So Jazakallah khair for joining us, everybody, this week. And we're going to give priority to brother Bosnian Muslim and Daniel Khawar next time. Anybody else in the studio as well? So there's loads of people trying to enter the studio. So inshallah, next time we could actually entertain your questions. A small request to everybody watching: if you are a guest on this live stream, make sure that your question, you timestamp it and you summarize it and you put it in the comments. And also anybody else watching, if you could timestamp the aspects, the parts rather in this live stream which relate to certain questions being answered, because that saves us time when it comes to future live streams as well. Any last words you want to put in before we?
No, I think we've said it all. I've learned a lot from you today, so I want to thank you and thank a lot of the people that have been interacting with us, because I've learned a lot from them as well.
How old are you, brother Danish?
You have an over 18 policy, so I'm 16.
You've been trying to trick us. Have you? Trying to, huh?
Where are you from, by the way? Just a quick question. Where are you from?
I'm from Pakistan, but I'm living in Sugarland, Texas.
Sugarland. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sugarland,
Interesting
It's
place.
Houston, like maybe 30 minutes like away from Houston.
You go to Houston
Mashallah.
if you want to have some good time.
Like Houston is like right now, like there's nothing to do. Like I
Well,
stay
well,
home.
but right now you have electricity cuts and
Yeah. Like we
What's
have it for like a whole week, yeah.
There are Muslim people in Sugarland.
Yeah, so many. There's like a lot of masjids, like so many resources. Alhamdulillah, like there's a very good Muslim like
Are there a
community.
lot of Muslims in Texas?
Yeah.
Have you
Houston, there is. I cannot.
oh, okay, we need to end the live stream there. Thank you so much for joining us, Brother Danir Khan. May Allah bless you.
You too.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Wa alaikum assalam.